हेलो। हाँ मैंने अभी हाँ मैंने दोबारा से स्टार्ट कर दिया, 3 लोग आ भी गए। हाँ जी, नहीं फ्रंट पेज पे आएगा उनके। मैं शेयर करने की कोशिश करता हूँ आपसे। व्हाट्सएप पे मैं आपके व्हाट्सएप पे भेजूंगा कि उसका लिंक वहां से खुल सके तो एक मैं कोशिश करता हूँ लिस्ट पे। मैंने विजय के लिए भेजा है, देखिए व्हाट्सएप पे। हेलो। हेलो। यही चलाता हूँ जब तक नहीं होता। हाँ मैंने भेजा आपके व्हाट्सएप पे, उसको क्लिक करिए, आपके व्हाट्सएप पे भेजा है मैंने वो लिंक है। तो मैं स्टार्ट कर दूं? स्टार्ट कर दूं? हाँ जी स्टार्ट कर दूं मैं? स्टार्ट कर दूं? हाँ जी हाँ जी जी।
Very good afternoon to all our viewers on the YouTube channel of the Embassy of India in Kabul. I am very happy that Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna of the Gandhian Forum for Ethical Corporate Governance has decided today to do the Gandhi Katha for all the lovers of Mahatma Gandhi in Afghanistan. Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the Indian nation, and he was not only a political leader who fought for India's independence, but also a great humanist, and above all a complete human being who taught us how to live our life in the most integrated fashion with our environment. Today, as the world faces multiple challenges of violence, disease, and various conflicts, the concepts of Mahatma Gandhi like Satyagraha, insistence on truth, non-violence, and empowerment of the last person on the street is something we all need to pay attention to and bring in our life in order for humanity to win over the disruptive forces. Living together with environment in harmony with nature is so very essential to deal with the modern day problems facing us all of environmental degradation and various strife. I hope that the Gandhi Katha that we are going to witness and see today would bring our attention to some of these problems and what Mahatma Gandhi taught us to do in order to deal with these problems. I wish you all very happy viewing. Thank you.
Namaskar and welcome to the Gandhi Katha, story of Mahatma Gandhi, narrated by me and hosted by the Indian Cultural Center, Embassy of India in Kabul, during the commemoration of the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, which incidentally is also the 150th birth anniversary of Kasturba Gandhi, his wife. Kasturba Gandhi's contribution in making Mohan into the Mahatma and inspiring millions of women to fight against injustice and racial discrimination in South Africa and in the freedom struggle in India is extraordinary. I pay my humble obeisance to the Matru Shakti, to all the women of the world who comprise 50% of the world's population. I express my deep gratitude to Ambassador Shri Vinay Kumarji and Shri M.S. Chauhan, Second Secretary, for hosting the Gandhi Katha amidst the challenging time of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic to learn from Gandhiji's practices of health and wellness of body, mind, spirit for coping up and staying safe physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually during and after the coronavirus COVID 19 pandemic, which has affected the entire humanity. I convey my warm wishes to the people of Afghanistan who have joined me online today. We stand in solidarity with you all in our common fight against the COVID 19 pandemic. Gandhi Katha is based on the ancient Indian oral tradition of Katha or storytelling with bhajans, hymns, and narrations from our scriptures. In a way, Gandhi Katha is unique because all the Kathas in India are the stories of people who lived thousands of years ago. Perhaps this is the first Katha of its kind about a person who lived amongst us and in our present days who made a great impact on humanity. In today's Gandhi Katha, Srimati Swati Bhagat and Sri Deepak Kalra are singing the hymns and the bhajans. The technical support and the presentation are by Dr. Ravi Chopra. The hymns of Gandhi Katha in Hindi have been composed by Sri Narayan Desai ji, my mentor, and I very gratefully acknowledge their contribution. In today's Gandhi Katha, I will also talk about Mahatma Gandhi's role or his lifelong endeavor in establishing communal harmony, his association with Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan or Badshah Khan, participation of the Khudai Khidmatgars in the freedom struggle, Gandhiji's moral and ethical leadership, his simple spiritual life in the ashrams, Gandhiji's passion for health and well being, and serving people during the public health emergencies. Today, the world is facing three kinds of crisis globally. First is the COVID 19 pandemic, which is causing intense physical stress and sickness. The second is the serious and long drawn financial crisis, which is also causing physical and mental anguish. And the third is the ecological crisis, environmental emergency, which is impacting everyone. We have to look for answers somewhere within ourselves by learning from the life of Mahatma Gandhi, who had said, "My life is my message." Gandhiji called himself a practical idealist. Whenever he heard something, read or saw something, and if he liked it, he immediately started practicing on it without waiting for anyone. The main aspect for Mahatma Gandhi was in action. He had said, "An ounce of practice is worth more than tons of preaching." Gandhiji used to begin and end his days with prayers. These were prayers from all the religions of the world, Sarvadharma Prarthana. Gandhiji said that ultimately all the religions point to the same truth of compassion, love, and forgiveness, and that everyone must study the essence of all the religions in an attitude of perfect reverence and must have friendship and respect for the practitioners of different religions and diverse cultures. All of Gandhiji's friends were from different religions and cultural background from around the world. One of his legacies to the world is nonviolent conflict resolution through interfaith dialogues for bringing about harmony and brotherhood. Last year, I visited 33 countries and gave 148 Gandhi Kathas. In all the countries, people have great reverence and respect for Mahatma Gandhi. Many have been inspired by him to take up the cudgels against injustice through nonviolence. Others have followed his environmental credo, and still others have been touched by his simple spiritual life. The new generation is eager to understand more about the greatest man of the last century who made such a huge impact on humanity. The greatest scientist of the last century, the first half of the last century, Albert Einstein, called him the supreme practical leader of change, and listening to his own voice.
I believe that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men in our time. We should strive to do things in his spirit, not to use violence in fighting for our cause, but by non-participation in anything you believe is evil.
He had also famously said that generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this, in flesh and blood, ever walked on this earth. According to my understanding, Mahatma Gandhi's life was an epic of faith and endeavor. His faith was in truth, the ultimate reality of truth, and he endeavored to attain it through nonviolence throughout his life till the very last breath. Gandhiji's adherence to truth, nonviolence, and purity of means has inspired me to give Gandhi Katha so that people can put their hearts into understanding Gandhiji and get inspired to learn from his extraordinary ethical and moral leadership, his spiritual life, his environmental credo, his revolutionary thoughts, actions, his lifelong service to humanity against all forms of injustice, and the way he continues to inspire people in all parts of the globe, at all times, and in all ages. Gandhiji used to remain positive under all circumstances, and that was his main trait. He had faced many challenges in his life. I think as the world is reeling under the impact of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic and everyone is affected, it is important to face it humbly, with reverence to the virus, gratitude and surrender to the divine forces which are beyond our control, fearlessly, intelligently, and with a positive outlook towards life. The more positive we, the ordinary people, will remain, the sooner we'll be able to take this situation in an auspicious direction. For Gandhiji, this trait was his way of life. Mahatma Gandhi had said that the key to good health is prayer, nature cure, disciplined life of routine, nutritious food, clean water, fresh air, physical and mental exercise, amongst others, and above all, to serve the fellow human beings. In short, during and after the pandemic, we need to invest heavily in preventive measures for self-care and nurture not so sick. The lesson the COVID-19 pandemic is teaching us is simple. When one member of the family falls sick, the entire family is affected, and soon the community is affected, the nation is affected, and then other communities in other nations in this globalized world. The well-being of one individual has an impact on people on the other side of the globe. This is true of every action of ours. What we eat, what we buy, what we think, and what we do has reverberations and repercussions on all life on this earth. It is this anubandha, this interconnectedness that sustains all life on earth. We are all in this together as one human family, whether we choose to see it or not, living on the same planet Earth, our Mother Earth. The current COVID-19 pandemic is a wake-up call for every country, big or small, rich or poor, developed or developing. It has opened our eyes to the fragility of the existence of humans. Perhaps the greatest source of strength for Mahatma Gandhi was in his faith in God. Truth was the deepest and the most complete form of God. The faith gave him the constant awareness that he was to be nothing but an instrument in his hands. He was to go wherever he was led. For him, the guidance of God constituted two things. One, he had to walk on the path enlightened by truth that was available to him in whatever measures and form. Two, he had to constantly gaze inwards and find inspiration through self introspection, self examination, and self purification. The deeper the faith, the greater was the endeavor for Mahatma Gandhi. He said, truth is God. Satya hi Parameshwar hai. Faith in truth led Mahatma Gandhi to two other realizations. If God is omnipresent, then truth is omnipresent too. If each human being were an aspect of God, then each person is capable of truth, of being good, and doing good to others. Therefore, his endeavor throughout his life was devoted to the search of that element of truth, to awaken it and to nurture it. This is why he could feel oneness with everyone, and that was another of his traits. For most of us, this realization does not set in easily. Because of this understanding of oneness, Gandhiji had no enemies. He did not want to settle scores with anyone. He did not want to take any revenge from anyone. He merely wanted to extend his love, service, compassion, and respect to everyone. He respected individuals as individuals without attaching any labels. And that was another trait that we see in Gandhiji. During the Gandhi Katha, I will tell about more of his traits. And if anyone hears them carefully, understands them clearly, and puts them into practice immediately, he or she will benefit immensely. Now I will play a Gandhi Katha dhun about Gandhiji's philosophy of truth and God. And that is in Hindi, and the lyrics are आंखें पवित्र रख सत्य ही तू बोल.
आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल. ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल. सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल. उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध. आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल. ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल.
Today, in the field of international conflict resolution, people are interested in the effectiveness of peaceful methods for ending disputes, as demonstrated by Mahatma Gandhi, compared with the use of force or violence. In peace-building context, scholars and practitioners are seeking to integrate authentic, indigenous, and local cultural methods of conflict analysis and intervention. People are finding inspiration in Mahatma Gandhi's ideals and his lifelong efforts of peace building and conflict resolution through interfaith dialogue and harmony. Throughout his life, Mahatma Gandhi engaged in finding solutions for conflict resolutions. Gandhi had deep respect for world religion and developed lifelong friendship with people from different religions. He took time to study, reflect, and engage with different faiths and faith communities. During his time, Gandhiji read the Holy Quran more than once and also many books on Islam. It made a deep impression on Gandhiji that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, often fasted and prayed, and that he had revelations not in moments of ease and luxurious living, but when he fasted and prayed, kept awake for nights together, and would be on his feet at all hours of the night as he received revelations. Mahatma Gandhi cultivated respect for Islam. To Gandhi, the central teaching of the Holy Quran remained that of peace. He regarded Islam as a religion of peace. He found Muslims to be brave, generous, and trusting. He sought to gain Muslim friendship through love. His ultimate remedy was to deal with the wrong but not to hurt the wrongdoer. Thus, to him, the ultimate answer lay in the concept of live and let live, or mutual forbearance and toleration in life. During his childhood, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was influenced by the strength and patriotism of his childhood friend Sheikh Mahatab. He had heard about the events from the life of the first Khalifa in Islam and the culture of Islam. In South Africa, he worked with Dada Abdullah, a rich merchant, for a case which was the biggest case that was being fought between two cousins in South Africa then. Every evening, they would have a discussion on religion. After Gandhiji forgave Mir Alam for attacking him, Mir Alam worked very closely with Gandhiji in the non-violent resistance in South Africa. Imam Sahib stayed with him in the Phoenix settlement in Durban and was Gandhiji's companion in his struggle for restoring the dignity of Indians living in South Africa and in the non-violent freedom struggle in India. Mahatma Gandhi appointed Abbas Tayyibji at age 76 to replace him as the leader of the Salt March in 1930 after Gandhiji was arrested. Dr. Hakim Ajmal Khan, Dr. M.A. Ansari were closely working with Mahatma Gandhi for communal harmony, and so were Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Dr. Zakir Hussain, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and other prominent leaders of India. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, known as Badshah Khan, and the frontier Gandhi from the northwest frontier, became a close associate of Gandhiji and worked to end the British colonial rule. When he came to India during the Gandhi centenary in 1969, he stayed with us in our home in New Delhi, and I have fond memories of serving him. Gandhiji's non-violent movement or satyagraha inspired generations of people, including Sarhadi Gandhi. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was the leader of the non-violent movement in the Northwest province, and it had begun from his ancestral village in Utmanzai in the year 1921. The region saw mass meetings and processions in preparation for the civil disobedience movement. He had begun the Khudai Khidmatgar movement, where he enrolled Pathans and trained them as soldiers of non-violence. The Pakhtuns, who were a pure and religious-minded people, who were also known to harbor animosity for generations, listened to Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan and addressed him as Fakir-e-Azam. They were attracted by Khan Sahib's pious and simple life and reposed great faith in him. Khan Sahib was deeply influenced by Gandhiji's ideals of ahimsa or non-violence and taught non-violence to the Khudai Khidmatgars by citing illustrations from the Holy Quran. He taught them the value of non-violence, abandonment, and sacrifice. The untiring efforts of the Pathans in Peshawar on 23rd April 1930 during the Salt Satyagraha were a result of the untiring efforts of Khan Sahib over the years. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan's success story, which is amazing, will go down in the annals of the non-violent resistance, not merely for its popularity, but also for its innately simple and spiritual outlook. In 1928, Basha Khan met Mahatma Gandhi for the first time and got involved in the Indian freedom struggle. He very soon became Gandhiji's closest aide. They spent many hours together debating politics, religion, culture, and cultural issues and laughing together. Both men had a very close bond marked by shared principles and an astounding level of mutual respect. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi spent the first 18 years of his life in India. Mohan, child Mohan, who was afraid of the dark, became fearless and forgave them who assaulted him. The seeds of spirituality were sown in India, and curiosity aided his first steps. He began as a student of average intelligence and was an ordinary person like you and me who learned to search within himself and analyze the world through its intellect. This was another trait of Mahatma Gandhi. Mohandas Gandhi went to London as a student and he studied law from the age of 19, 20, and 21. His conscience expanded by reading the works of the great philosophers and poets of the West, and he interacted with great reformers and thinkers. The shy, withdrawn Mohandas became the secretary of the Vegetarian Society of London. He became a barrister in London and also learned the lessons of citizenship. From 1893 to 1914, Gandhiji was in South Africa, where he spent close to 20 years of his life and did his sadhana or penance, fought against injustice non-violently, and became the advocate of the Indian indentured labor. The path of sadhana or penance took him to Satyagraha, which is his first legacy to the world. After the incidents at the Pietermaritzburg station, where he came face to face with racial discrimination and was thrown out of the first class compartment, there was a metamorphosis in him. The individual barrister Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi turned into the societal Gandhi Bhai and gave the world a novel way of fighting injustice called Satyagraha. Satyagraha is using truth force, love force, and soul force to establish justice through self-suffering and sacrifice to melt the hearts of the hardest of the hearts of the adversaries through non-violence. In 1904, in South Africa, after reading John Ruskin's book Unto This Last, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi transformed his life and started leading a simple community life of self-control, voluntary poverty, bread labor, and worked for Sarvodaya or welfare of all. He established 4 ashrams in his lifetime, 2 in South Africa called the Phoenix Settlement, which he established in 1904, and Tolstoy Farm in 1910, and 2 ashrams in India known as Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad in Gujarat, which he established in 1917, and Sevagram Ashram, where Kasturba Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi lived in poverty like the common villagers of India from 1936 onwards. This was his ideal of a non-violent face-to-face society for Sarvodaya or welfare of all through constructive program, Rachanatmak Karyakram, which is his second gift to humanity. I am happy to inform you that I was born and brought up in his last ashram in Sevagram. My father was inspired by Gandhiji since his student days and joined the non-violent freedom movement and stayed in the ashram. Even after Gandhiji passed on in 1948, for more than 5 decades, my parents and all of us continue to walk on the path that Gandhiji has shown to humanity. So, what I am telling you today is based on what my parents have told me, my own understanding and experience of understanding Gandhiji, who has inspired generations of people who have followed his path and continue to do so even today. During his, that is, during Khan Saab's 6 year period of exile from the Northwest province in 1934, Pasha Khan, his 12-year-old son Abdul Ali, his 14-year-old daughter Meher Taj stayed with their loving father under Gandhiji's loving care in Sevagram Ashram. Basha Khan involved himself in constructive programs, toured all over India with Gandhiji, and took active part in the ashram activities. In absence of their loving father, the children, Abdul Ali and Meher Taj, stayed under the loving care of Kasturba Gandhi, Jamnalal Bajaj, and Meera Bahan. Gandhiji visited the northwest frontier between 1st to 8th of May 1938. By then, Khan Sahib had become, in his own right, a leader and had involved himself as an esteemed leader of the resurgent nation. He was seen taking a lead part in the various movements launched by Gandhiji, which included the individual civil disobedience movement and the momentous Quit India movement in 1942. Ashram life was a life of strict routine from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. It was a simple life of labor or shrama, voluntary self-control, punctuality, discipline, promptness, minimalistic living, living in harmony with nature, following the environmental credo of Gandhiji of minimum use of resources, recycling, reusing, reducing, and refusing, treating through nature cure, having simple vegetarian diet which was grown in the ashram, and morning and evening prayers, observing Ekadasha Vrata or 11 vows, the rules set by Gandhiji for leading a life of purity and self-control, which is his third gift to humanity, practice of cleanliness, sanitation, hygiene, spinning, weaving, bread labor, a very punctual and strict life, constructive programs for serving humanity, and using every moment of time in the service of people. As you all know, time is the only non-renewable resource that all of us have. And we must use it very, very carefully, like Gandhiji did. He is the role model of punctuality, promptness, and discipline. That is his other trait. Another trait is that he used to be ever vigilant and had perfect control over his sleep. Gandhiji used to work for 18 hours a day, not for any position, not for any power, or not for any wealth, but he worked selflessly without attachment and possession in the spirit of yajna or sacrifice. Gandhiji's unique practices of silence, maun, prayers, fasting, and spinning gave him the internal strength. He carried out his experiments in health and wellness through nature cure, diet control, hydrotherapy, sun bath, mud packs, and observing silence for one whole day, from Sunday night to Monday night. The ashram inmates not only participated but modified and validated all these practices and still continue to practice till this day. This points to their relevance. Thus, Gandhiji has given three gifts to humanity, and that is Satyagraha, constructive programs, and Ekadashi Vrata. In the ashram prayers, which were held morning and evening, the first verse from the Ishopanishad, the Upanishadic text from India, used to be recited. And it is Ishavasya sarvam yat kincha jagatyan jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha ma gridha kasya svidhanam, that everything in this universe belongs to God. Nothing belongs to you. Enjoy the objects of the world in an attitude of perfect non-attachment. Enjoy it with a feeling of sacrifice, taking to the extent that is necessary for you, and leave the rest for others in the society. Never ever crave the possession of others. Nothing really belongs to you. Now we will sing a Gandhi Katha dhun describing the same sentiments in Na yah tera, na yah mera, Ishwar ka yah raj hai. Very few people know that as a couple, Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi contributed immensely 123 years ago to public health emergencies and service of humanity. Gandhiji dedicated his life to serving the entire humanity, which started by serving his father and mother in his childhood in India. In 1896, barrister M.K. Gandhi took training in nursing in Cottage Hospital in South Africa and volunteered in taking care of patients. In 1897, he nursed and cared for a native leprosy patient at home, and later on, with the help of his friend Parsi Rustamji, set up a hospital in Durban. This he continued to do in India also, and leprosy eradication became part of one of the constructive programs. During the Second Anglo-Boer War from 1899 to 1902 and in the Zulu uprising of 1906, he established the Natal Indian Ambulance Corps, and along with 300 free Indians and 800 Indian indentured labor, served as stretcher bearers for carrying the grievously injured prisoners of war. In the bubonic plague outbreak in Johannesburg in 1904, he and Kasturba Gandhi not only rushed to help the Indian indentured labor who were living in very squalid and unhygienic surroundings and conditions in the coolie settlements, but also quarantined them immediately in an empty godown along with his friends and treated them through nature cure. Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi returned to India in 1915. In the Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918, Gandhiji opened up his ashram as the quarantine center, that was the Sabarmati ashram, treated and served patients through nature cure, gave them simple diet to boost immunity, and maintain physical distancing. Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi took care of the families of the patients, counseled them, looked after their mental and spiritual needs, asked them to join in the prayer, morning and evening prayers and recitation of Ramanama, for being positive and taking care of each other during the time of the Spanish flu pandemic. In November 1918, Gandhiji had said, "Our ancestors could build such tough bodies in the past, but today we are reduced to a state of miserable weakness and are easily infected by noxious germs moving about in the air. There is one and only one really effective way by which we can save ourselves from them even in our present broken state of health. And that way is the way of self restraint or sanyam and of imposing a limit on our acts." Gandhiji used to call himself the commander in chief of the non-violent army and always used to be in the forefront as the frontline worker in public health emergencies and serve people in all the potentially dangerous situations. This was another of his traits. One more trait is that he used to treat all work as God given work and did it with equal reverence, with an attitude of yajna or selfless sacrifice. Though Gandhiji's role and contribution to the political arena are well known, what is less known is his contribution towards health. Not many people are aware that he was interested in studying medicine and wanted to be a doctor. Gandhiji did not end up pursuing medicine, but that did not diminish his interest in health and working for the sick and the poor. His interest in health, hygiene, nutrition, and disease was as great as his interest in politics. He insisted that adopting preventive measures for disease was better than treatment. He also said that it was important to focus on cleanliness, a controlled diet, an exercise regimen, avoid overconsumption of medicines, especially those that were not required. These lessons are so very relevant during the current corona virus COVID-19 pandemic as well. Gandhiji practiced law for a couple of years and then quit, but for as long as he lived, he continued working to heal the sick. He was also a firm believer of nature cure and conducted experiments related to diet and fasting. He always believed that it was important to understand what caused diseases and then remove the very cause, rather than falling ill again and then attempting to treat it with excessive medication. Mahatma Gandhi's message to the world on the vital question of health and well being is very important. To him, the study of this question was part of the service to God and His creation, which was his mission. Knowing to care summed up his life. Gandhiji's message was simple and easy to follow. It encouraged every Indian to respect simplicity, voluntary self control, reduce the wants, follow the Indian tradition, cultural practices, and values taught by the Indian ancestors through yoga, Ayurveda, living in harmony with nature, following the environmental credo, and prayers. His attire represented his message to lead a simple life of voluntary poverty. His teachings included instructions on manner of dress, personal health and hygiene habits, diet, values, and making choices that reflect the nation's true spirit. He was a great advocate of nature cure, which he followed rigorously on himself and taking good care of his body. So, in this pandemic situation, it is very important to understand that we are responsible for taking care of ourselves and others. Gandhiji was very interested in health and wellness of himself as well as about others. He said that our lifestyle should be such that it should not lead us in let any disease come anywhere near us, and every person is responsible for looking after his or her body, mind, and spirit impeccably. Gandhiji maintained that health and wellness means one should keep the body healthy without any disease and must carry on the day's routine without getting tired. He also advised to understand the bodies and said everyone must understand that it is made up of the five elements that are found in nature, and that is what has been told to us by our ancient seers and sages. And these five elements are air, water, fire, earth, and space. For the wellness of our bodies, the balance and harmony between all these five elements is very necessary. For Gandhiji, the outside universe was but a reflection of the inside universe. He repeated time and again that the universe is compressed in the atom. There is not one law for the atom and another for the universe. It was based on his actual spiritual experiments that gave him the conviction that the moral principles have no meaning unless they can be made to serve as the guide of conduct in the daily affairs of man. I will play the Gandhi Katha dhun now, which defines Gandhiji's definition of truth. Utter as you think and act as you utter. मन वाणी कर्म से सत्य ही तू बोल.
मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल. मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल. जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू बोल. जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू बोल. ज्ञान कर्म भक्ति का हो सम्यक विधान. ज्ञान कर्म भक्ति का हो सम्यक विधान. सत्य शिव सुंदर का सुमधुर होगा. सत्य शिव सुंदर का सुमधुर होगा. मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल. मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल. जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू बोल. जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू बोल. ज्ञान कर्म भक्ति का हो सम्यक विधान. ज्ञान कर्म भक्ति का हो सम्यक विधान. सत्य शिव सुंदर का सुमधुर होगा. सत्य शिव सुंदर का सुमधुर होगा.
For the benefit of readers of the Indian Opinion newspaper, which he had established in South Africa, in or about the year 1906, Gandhiji wrote a few articles under the heading Guide to Health because he was constantly experimenting with his diet and health since his student days in London. In 1942, when Gandhiji was imprisoned in the Aga Khan Palace jail, while he was leading the Quit India movement, he wrote the book Key to Health. And he said, anyone who observes the rules of health mentioned in this book will find that he has got in it a real key to unlock the gates leading him to health. He will not need to knock at the doors of doctors or Vaidyas, that is, traditional health practitioners, from day to day. Gandhiji was the first environmentalist, and with his stunning premonition and knowledge, he had declared that earth has enough for man's needs, but not for man's greed. Greed will be the main reason for the environmental degradation and the ecological crisis he had predicted almost a century ago. He had also said that the earth, the air, the land, and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our children. So we have to hand it over to them as it was handed over to us. James Durant, American writer, historian, and philosopher, best known for writing The Story of Civilization, spoke some very inspirational words ever written about Mahatma Gandhi. And I quote, "Not since Buddha has India so revered any man, not since Saint Francis of Assisi has any life known to history has been so marked by gentleness, disinterestedness, simplicity of soul, and forgiveness of enemies. We have the astonishing phenomenon of a revolution led by a saint. In the COVID 19 crisis, people are discovering just how much control they have over their thoughts, which is very little. In a crisis, fear and anxiety starts to roam the mind, and struggling against them does only a little good, which is temporary at the best. This is why so many people turn to denial and distraction. They try to deny their fearful thoughts and turn to distractions to escape them through all kinds of things. But there is a better way. When a crisis makes you feel stressed, meditation and prayer relieves the stress response. Fear and anxiety are forms of stress that become exaggerated when events become uncertain, when you feel a loss of control over the situation, and when the stress keeps repeating itself without let up. The thinking mind reacts to all of these conditions. It always has, even in the normal times, but in a crisis, it brings stress into high relief, making it very capable of lowering the immune system of our body and beginning the inflammatory diseases. We will have to learn to live with COVID 19 now and in the future as well. Instead of reinventing a new style, we just have to get inspired from the life of Mahatma Gandhi to make necessary changes in thoughts and actions for coping up physically, mentally, and spiritually. And this is the future that the coronavirus COVID 19 pandemic is pointing out to us if we observe carefully. Many lessons are very clear, and some are still unknown, surrounding us in uncertainty. This uncertainty is causing mental stress, anxiety, existential crisis, fear of extinction and death, and the mass psychology of living in depression and grief is pointing out towards this fact. We are collectively grieving for the loss of our known lifestyle. However, at a deeper level, it is for the wellness of humans to coexist in harmony with Mother Nature, as our mere existence depends on that. By living in harmony with the universe, we support the nature by taking care of all its creation. There is no alternative to this lifestyle. For all of us, there is no other way than the way of standard prevention and taking care of oneself and others. Community and mutual support is essential, and so is the happiness and welfare of others. So, I will end today's Gandhi Katha with a Sanskrit shloka, which is a peace benediction for the universal welfare. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let all be happy. Let all be healthy. Let all experience auspiciousness. Let no one be overwhelmed with grief. Om, peace, peace, peace. I once again take this opportunity to thank the Indian Cultural Center, Embassy of India in Kabul, for hosting the Gandhi Katha today. My special thanks to all of you who have joined me online and have given me the most precious gift of your time. Gandhiji had said, that peace is the only positive force which will lead us from darkness towards light. I will play Gandhi Katha Dhun Shubh Mangal Ho, which says, may there be auspicious good, may there be good, may the earth be auspicious, may the sky be auspicious, may every particle on earth be auspicious.
मंगल हो शुभ